In this video, we'll make it so we can change the prefix here. If I wanted the prefix to be dot, we'll also briefly explain databases, and we'll go into MongoDB, we'll structure our data, and we'll allow for any amount of command arguments dynamically. So, let's get started. Hello there. Now, we left off with commands. The last video we were adding the config. It's pretty cool. So, now, what should we do with this project now? What can we do? So, we have our bot.js here. Cool. Now, let's add custom prefixes. So, what do I mean by custom prefixes? If we go into command handler, let's look. The prefix is hard-coded here. How would I make this prefix? How would I customize it for each of my guilds? Okay, so Mongoose, we're going to use Mongoose. Now, what is Mongoose? Let me see. Hold on. MongoDB Compass Community. Okay, hold on. We're going to install this for this video. So make sure you have this installed. Hold on, let's go on this. Okay, once you're on here, you want to install MongoDB Compass, and it should include the community server. I'm not entirely sure, but please, you should install that for this video. But it should come with the actual database. So MongoDB, it should come with that, and that's what we're going to use to start the database. Okay, so what is a database? What is data? Basically, a database is just a way of storing data. It's just a place to store data in. That's all you need to know, I guess, for now. There's two types. There's a relational, non-relational. We're going to be using a non-relational. An example of relational is SQL. And it's also a programming language as well. So MySQL is a database management system. And there is MongoDB, so it's relational database. It's used by Facebook, Reddit, etc. I think it's used by Reddit anyway. MongoDB. Okay, I'll edit that out. Okay, MongoDB is non-relational, no SQL, which means we don't need a special language to use it or interact with it. We can just use JavaScript. Even better, we can interact with it in code. And it uses JSON-like documents that are called, it's actually called bson. Here are the types that bson can store and that JSON can't. I'm just using a random image here. So there we go. So Mongoose, very cool. Let's install Mongoose. I think that is all we need. Now, I'm going to assume you installed MongoDB Compass. So we're going to type MongoD. And now the database is running. If that command fails, maybe it's already running for you. There's one way to find out by typing Mongo. And then it shows up like this. Show DBS, that is MongoDB, shell. And here's some databases that I've created. We don't need to worry about that, it's all done behind the scenes. So, bot.js. We're going to import connect, or const, we're going to import Mongoose, and we're going to connect to the database. Okay, so what now? Where do I put this? I'm just going to put it here. Mongoose.connect. Shouldn't really be in the bot.js. It's not really the bot, but it's the starting file. So mongoose.connect. Now, we're going to connect to the MongoDB. instead of URL. It's not a URL really. It's just a way of saying it. URL or URI. But we're gonna have MongoDB localhost. And by default the port is 27017. That is the default port. And it's assumed that the port, we're using that port. And now, let's open MongoDB Compass Community. If your server is running in the background, you can connect to it via the shell or via this. You should have a shell installed. Okay. So now we put in our database name, which is 1pg demo test. I'll rename this to 1pg probably after this video. But there we go. Here we're connected to the database. We can see, here's the prototype, I believe. And they're like JSON, it's like JSON here. But there's more types and it's in a database. It's a lot faster to access. It's a lot better than just having JSON files, which I've tried before. Yeah. So MongoDB, we connect and then it gives a callback error. So we're going to use ternary here. Hold on. So we're going to type, if there's an error, what should we do? We should console.log failed to connect to data or DB, could write database, then console.log connected, otherwise if it didn't fail, connected to database. So the error should be undefined if it did not fail. Okay, very cool. F5. I think my bot token is invalid. Okay, so now we're getting a deprecation error in the console, or warning. Now, how do we get rid of this? Well, it just comes with the update, a new update. So we pass in the options after connect, and we just type this in, use new URL parser true, and we're not done yet. And there's another one, use unified topology true. And now we refresh, save refresh, sorted, connected to database or DB. How do we store data? Well, first of all, we're going to make a folder called data, and then we're going to have a folder called models. Now, what is models? Let's see. Object modeling. So we model an object, and an object's like a class really. It's a template for the data. So, for example, if I have a guild, let me show you. If I have a guild, this has an ID by default. It's underscore ID. That is just how we identify this document, and that's what Mongoose uses by default. As you can see, that's just an index. We don't need to worry about that though. So it's a way of formatting and making sure the documents follow this scheme, and they're all the correct types. Like this is a string, this is a prefix, this is a string, this is a string as well, an object, like that basically. Yeah. So guild.js is the model name. Now we're just going to require Mongoose here, and we're just going to export mongoose.model by default as well. Now what are we exporting? So mongoose.model takes in a name. Okay, it takes in a name. What is the name? Guild. The name it will be guild because we want to save the guild data. Also, this is not our database. This is just like in the future, I guess you could call it. So, and blacklisted channel IDs, we add that in the dashboard part. We're just going to have prefix, the custom prefix. So how do we do that? Well, it's contained within the general object. First of all, guild, and then S is added at the end of this string, and that's applied to the name. That's just what Mongoose does. So we define general, and that is equal to type. We have type here. Oh, we're missing something, just a minor thing. Schema. Mongoose.schema. Let's actually destructure this and have model and schema like this. Cool. Now we can get rid of Mongoose. Okay, so there are types in Mongoose. Now we're on the docs here, link in the description, or you can type it in. So, what is the problem here? Or what are the types? Okay, schema types. Now here are all the types. There's a lot you can do with Mongoose, so I recommend you search this up. I use it too much. But there we go, string. We're going to use an object. So these are BSON types. We're going to use an object. We can't use a class name, I don't think, as it's not a schema type. And then the default, we have the default value other than null, which is new. Now this is where we new up or instantiate the general module. And let's have the general module here. I don't know why I say new up, but we're going to have prefix default value dot. Very cool. Okay. And that's pretty much it. We're exporting this, and yes. So, what can we do with that? So, a thing to note is, when we type model, it returns a model. Now, models are very versatile. So, when we type dot, model dot, this is an instance of a model, we get loads of methods to work with. Now, we're only going to use a few here. Find by ID, which is, it uses the underscore ID. It seems to be the fastest with Mongoose. And also, so only if two documents have the same ID, it throws an error with Mongoose. That is not possible with Mongoose. Otherwise, it will get it won't work in theory, because they would identify as the same document. They need a unique ID, so keep that in mind. So we're exporting this by default now. In, where should we go? So in command handler. So when we handle a message, hold on, message handler. So we just pass in the message, and that's it from command handler. We can do better. So what are we gonna do? We're gonna pass in something to the handle, which is the save guild. So how do we get the save guild? Good question. We can get the guild from here. Hold on. So in guild.js we can get this model, and we can do things with the model. So, and we also use a capital with models, so require data. So go back 2 folders, data, models, guild. So await guild dot find by ID. We can do that. And then the ID. What is the ID? We're going to store the actual guild ID to represent the saved value of the guild. So guild message.guild.id. Now, if that's null, what we can do is await guild dot create ID. So we put underscore ID. Doesn't seem to work with just ID. And then we pass in message.guild.id. Now let's refresh. Okay, let's make this async. Okay, we're gonna go on Discord and validate that that works. So it's connected and ready to go. Ping. Ping. Now we're having a problem here. Cast.object failed for value this at path ID for model guild. What is the problem? Well, by default, the schema ID is object ID, which is a mongoose type, so it is types, schema type, I believe, schema type dot, hold on, types dot, object ID. This is the default value. It's this type here, but an object ID. Okay, we want it to be a string, so we can actually define the type instead of having to type all this. So this is the default type and an object ID. Hold on. If we refresh here, no data is created. Also, databases and collections are automatically created when we perform create operations with them. Underscore ID, let's have that being a string, and now we don't need to put this anywhere else. Refresh. So we're telling Mongoose that we want the ID to not be an object ID. Now, if we type ping, what happens? Is there an error? Cannot read properties send of undefined. Let's have save guild in here. Or let's pass it as a second argument, that'll be better. Make more English. So, save guild, boom. So now if we type ping, it says pong. So everything's working as expected. Breakpoint. Breakpoint here instead. Ping. Now we can inspect what the save guild is. Oh, the ID. Yep. The ID is the value of this guild ID here. That is good. Now let's see what is going on here. Wow. Apparently one does exist. Yeah, 1PG demo test, guilds. Here it is, prefix dot. And we're getting our custom prefix. Very cool. Now let's add that into the const prefix equals save guild dot general dot prefix. Now let's try again. So ping save guild general prefix is dot. Good. And then we get it in there. What if we want the prefix to be plus? What happens then? We don't even need to restart the bot. Ping. Pong. There we go. Custom prefix. And there's a dashboard series to customize the prefix with a UI. That's what it's for. And a lot more than a prefix. That's what dashboards are for. Okay. Let's cool down. Now, this is good, this works, everything works, but we're going to reuse this pretty much everywhere. In a lot of places we're going to reuse this. So let's add a database or model wrapper that just adds this in a single method. Data. Let's make a file called guilds.js. Export, module.exports equals class, new class, and then get, we're just going to get and return this. That's it. Simple. And we can have guilds if we want here. Default name. Okay, now we can literally just type. We don't even need this. We can type guilds. And then we can have guilds, import that. Guilds.get. Obviously, we need to pass in the guild ID for this to work. Done. So, message.guild.id, and also this is asynchronous. Now we need to await this. We need to import guild in here. So const guild equals require models, like that. Okay. Now ping pong. There we go. We've done it. Okay, so let's make a custom prefix and let's be able to change it. So in handle, what should we do here? Well, currently if we make a command, we're not passing in the command arguments, and that is a problem. There are two problems here. One of them is it does not support arguments, only just the command name. So let's fix the command name real quick. So we want to slice or split, sorry. We want to split the content of the command name. So if I type ping and then an argument or something, so if I type ping and then space that, it goes into an array with 2 items, and we only want the array items after this command name, so we get rid of that. That's what we want for command arguments, and we're splitting this into 2 right here. So we want to get the first one here, and then we remove the prefix, so it looks like this. That's the aim of this command name. There we go. So command arguments, message.content. So we're going to do something similar here, but as we said, we're going to split it, and then we're going to slice and get rid of the first thing that's separated with a space. So ping, test. We only get test and everything behind it, and that's the args. So we're going to use the spread operator, which separates each item in an array into an argument to a function. There we go. So if there was ping, if there was 2 arguments, and these are string, by the way, these are strings. So if I type ping, it's a bad example, test1, test2, test1 and test2 would be passed in if they were the arguments. Like that. Cool. Let's make the prefix command now. So prefix.js. So we're going to copy ping and rename this prefix, and then we're going to get the args, which is the new prefix. That's 1 argument. Okay, let's get the guild. Now how do we do that? Let's import the guild's model handler, if we want to call it, from data. And now we can manipulate the guild, the saved guild. So const save guild equals, now we need to make this asynchronous because it takes time. Now await guilds.get, pass in the guild ID, and we're good to go. Okay. Now, so if there's no message.content, we want to show the current prefix. So message channel.send current prefix. Let's escape some backticks. And then the current prefix is save guild. .general.prefix, like that. Now, I guess we don't need the brackets. Now, so if I don't add anything here, this optional argument is null. Sorry, I meant if there's no new prefix, we send the current prefix. Otherwise, if there is a new prefix specified, save guild.general, we just set it, that's it. And then we can type save guild.update1. You can't type save, that doesn't work for some reason. And then we pass in the saved guild, and that should do it. Then we're going to send a message. This is asynchronous, so we await. Then we're going to send a message saying we changed the prefix. So prefix was changed to escape backticks. What did we change the prefix to? New prefix. That was pretty simple. So, restart. And let's see that in action. Ping. Okay. Now I want the prefix to be plus. So it's not set prefix, it's prefix plus. Prefix was changed to plus. Plus ping. Pong. And now if I just type plus prefix, current prefix equals plus. Very good. So, another thing we should do is, we don't have to do it, but in events here, I want to rename this to event.js, I guess, event handler.js. Okay, so in events, okay, so a minor thing, in events, I want to change this message handler to message event. And ready event here. So now, I guess we're ready for the dashboard series. So in the next series, we'll create a dashboard for our bot. So we'll expand upon our bot project and we'll build this dashboard around it. And this is partially what it looks like. So, see you there.